Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you wish, you can have your cameras on. And we invite all of you to be active participants. So you can send in questions while we are having the conversation. And then depending on where the questions fit in, we will either interrupt very gently our speakers or hold off until the end to ask them. But welcome everybody. I think we have everybody in the room, so we're ready to start. Manelli, do you want to begin?
Yes, I am happy to. Hello, everybody. My name is Manelli Manoukian. I am the Executive Director for the Center for Art Law. Thank you so much for joining us in our digital space for the first installment of our Some Like It digital series on art law lunch talks for today, AI and Art Authentication. If this is the first time that you're attending a Center for Art Law event, let me give you a snapshot of our amazing organization. So we are a Brooklyn-based research and education nonprofit dedicated to offering resources and programming for the advancement of a vibrant arts and law community worldwide. Through our website, newsletter, and events, we disperse information and keep our audience updated on art law related news, programs, cases, publications, and more. We are working currently online and we facilitate conversations by hosting and participating in programs like today. And we have a great internship program as well that allows students to get firsthand education and experience in arts and cultural heritage law. Of course, this doesn't really even begin to explain everything that we do. So we invite you to subscribe to our newsletter, and to receive updates and invitations, or to visit our website, which I will put in our chat. You can also consider becoming a member or making a donation to support our efforts. Before we begin, a couple housekeeping items. This program is being recorded for archival purposes. Feel free to turn off your camera if that doesn't make you comfortable. Everyone will be muted except for the panelists. So please use the chat box below here on the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions, we'll be monitoring the chat, putting links to resources or websites or things that are mentioned during the conversation, and we'll be monitoring the questions as well. If you have any tech issues or practical questions, feel free to put them in there and we will answer to the best of our ability. A link to the handouts with bios and reading materials will be placed in the chat right at the beginning of our presentation here today. After the event, you'll receive a link to a survey asking you what you thought of today's event. After you complete the survey, you will be given a link to download these handout materials. As usual, we appreciate you being willing to take these event surveys. The results will help us bring together more events and speakers of interest to you. Without any further ado, I will introduce Irina Tarsis. She is the founder and managing director of the Center for Art Law, and she will present our speakers and get our conversation started.
Hi, thank you, Manelli, and thank you, Kelsey, and all of our fall 2021 team members for working on this program and the programs that are coming up. We have a very interesting contemporary conversation planned for today. We have two speakers. Carina Popovici, she is not a lawyer and, to the best of my knowledge, not an artist, but she's a scientist who decided to be a bit disruptive in this space. And as a foil for this conversation, we have both a lawyer and an artist, and a collector and an advisor, Françoise Birnholz, who is going to not poke holes, but maybe ask some questions about the role that artificial intelligence can and does play in the space of art authentication. I am, of course, not able to just cede the floor, so I will plant a few ideas in your minds, and then we will hear from Carina about the work that she's been doing and how she's been disrupting this field. And again, welcome everybody for joining to today's program, and it's really nice to see so many new faces and old friends. So hopefully you have questions and comments. All right, the name of this new series is Some Like It Digital. I am a black and white, probably 20th century remnant, but some like it hot and some like it's, I don't know, zeros and ones. What are we talking about? Exactly 2 months ago, we talked about fakes and how fakes can be detected. So if you are interested in the subject of experts giving opinions and why some foundations, or not foundations, but authentication boards might have disbanded, you are welcome to come back and listen to the discussions between Judd Tully and Emily Reisbaum. But the subject is what happens when a painting is offered for sale, and what happens if there is a forger behind this painting. So AI has potential to change the art business. This is the headline from 2020. Also, earlier headlines have been lamenting the freeze in art authentication, disbanding of various committees. And in your handouts, you'll see a list of cases involving disgruntled owners of fakes suing experts or suing auction houses for somehow being responsible for acquisition of works not by the hand of the old master or by somebody unknown. Fast forward to the present, auction houses continue selling works of art, but what they do is they give limited warranties or they disclaim any warranties. This is coverage of the story involving Sotheby's. They inadvertently sold a number of forgeries, and they were able to identify these forgeries and actually reimburse the collectors or the successful bidders, buyers of the pieces, and then they went after the consigners to undo the sales. I'm sharing with you Sotheby's template for disclaimer of warranties, and we'll talk more about what can and cannot be disclaimed. But of course, the buyers should be aware of what they're getting into, whether it's digital or otherwise. Which brings us both to London. So thanks to our space, digital space, we can travel at the drop of a hat. Welcome to the National Gallery in London, which according to today's website says they have a painting by Peter Paul Rubens, Samson and Delilah. You can see from the key facts that they share that they bought this piece in 1980. It's on display in room 18. So when Françoise decides to go to National Gallery because she just arrived in London, she theoretically could see this work of art. This work of art was purchased through Christie's. And those of you who are interested in art history and provenance research, you can take a look at the 1980, that's 41 years ago, catalog for the sale. And that particular sale actually had one piece, just one, this one. And National Gallery of Art purchased this work for $2.5 million. But the headlines now say whether the authenticity of this work is correct or not. AI apparently disagrees, or AI actually sides with the skeptics, those who were really not sure that $2.5 million was worth paying back 40 years ago for the work that may or may not have been by the old master. So this is the warranty that Christie's auction house has right now. And if we have time, or maybe I'll just put it in the link, Christie's was selling not only the work of art in 1980, in 2014, they sold a drawing, a preparatory drawing for the painting by Rubens, and they gave provenance information. If that drawing was a forgery as well, or not by the artist, the warranty would no longer be covering, because Christie's and Sotheby's and other auction houses are giving limited period of time when the sale can be undone. Okay, what do others do in terms of warranties about authenticity? There's this organization in Switzerland called Art Recognition, and they are giving services, which we will hear about firsthand, but they also give terms of service to those who come to them for questions, and they give very clear parameters. So the expectations of the users are set from the get-go. All right, with that in mind, I'm going to turn the floor to Carina. She is a PhD in physics, so I am going to just back away and let Carina speak about the idea of disrupting this process of art authentication. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Irina, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. So I'm Carina Popovici. I am the CEO of Art Recognition. As Irina said, our startup is based in Zurich in Switzerland. And so what we do, we offer to the art world an AI service for art authentication and for forgery detection. So Maybe you can get on to the next slide, Irina, if you want. Okay, so maybe I will just quickly go through the problem because it has been summarized already. But as you all know, basically there is a huge forgery in the global art market. I mean, also the art experts and collectors themselves, they are saying that the authenticity is the main risk, you know, in buying and selling art. Some sources, including the Interpol, I believe, are saying that at least half of the global art market might be a forgeries. In some countries like China or Russia, this could go up to 80% apparently. So these are really huge and very worrying numbers. And as you know, there are like cases of famous art galleries who had to close down, like the famous Knoder case, like after 165 years of being in the business, they have to close down because of lawsuits. So it's really a big and serious problem out there. Could you move on, please? So basically, our solution to this problem is a modern digital solution, is a new way, if you will, to know if your art is real or not. So maybe just to briefly describe to you how the service works, because it's really super easy to use for anyone who has some art or doesn't. So basically you just have to take a photograph of your artwork or an artwork in a museum for that matter. Then you upload it to our website. So through a secure web platform, of course, and that art, that piece of art goes through our AI, and in a short time, so in a couple of weeks, you receive a response. You know, it's original or not, and with some information. Now, we believe that there are very relevant benefits, you know, to art lovers and experts. So first of all, it's very fast. So really, this is the fastest authentication service that exists out there. It's also hassle-free, you know, since you only need to upload the photograph, you don't have to transport and insure your art and don't have to pay for those, of course. It is objective and unbiased, and this is something that's very relevant for this discussion that we are having today, I believe. So the fact that there is no human involved at all, you know, it's just a machine that's learning, you know, the brushstroke and other features of an artist from some training data, and then returns a response. So myself, I mean, I have created the machine, of course, but when running an AI analysis, I'm absolutely not involved. So this is a very cold, you know, very objective expertise. And in addition to that, we also encrypt our reports, you know, when we give them to our clients and experts. I mean, they can put them on the cloud, you know, they can do whatever they want on the blockchain, you know, they are like digitally signed by us, and it's not possible to change the information that's in those reports. If you want to move on, please, Irina. Okay, so just to give you a brief idea, I mean, this is slightly technical, but just to explain you in a nutshell how it works. So as I said, first of all, the AI has to learn an artist. So learning means that we feed in a lot of images, so original images, of course, by that artist. In this example, we have a Van Gogh, so we feed in like 5,000 trustworthy images. Then the AI learns, so it's a deep learning machine, basically, that learns the unique style of that artist. So the brushstroke is the most important feature, but there are also others in this example, edge location, colors, and so on. And then when a new painting comes in, the AI basically searches for those features and compares, you know, if there is a match, like if the brushstroke matches, then there is going to be a high probability for an original response. And if there is a mismatch, obviously it would be a high probability for a negative response. We also produce a heat map, you know, which shows like in different colors, which are the most important features that led to the decision of the art of the network. So basically we are trying to open up the analysis and the black box a little bit more, but that's how it works really. And we have access to databases of more than 1 million images through some professional databases, so through our partners basically. Can you please move on? Okay, so we have, I mean, obviously we're a commercial service provider, so we have been running actually more than 400 analyses by now. We have many customers that work with us, so really mainly buyers and sellers, so private collectors, but we also work with some galleries, an auction house, wealth managers, so really a rather broad client base. But at the same time, we are also active in the in research. So we are involved together with our scientific partners at Tilburg University into an EU-funded project, which is actually ongoing currently. And so we will be soon be publishing a scientific paper where we explain our updated AI, basically. So we are also at the forefront of the AI research, not just a commercial service provider. So if you could move on, please. Okay. Most of the artists that we've been working on are impressionists. So these are basically most of the client requests that come in. As I said, we have access to more than 1 million data. This data are a bit outdated. Actually, I think we have almost 100 trained artists by now, and more than 500 artists in our own image database. But what I want to emphasize maybe at this point is that we are also encountering difficulties. You know, there are a number of serious challenges. Like, for example, if you have outdated catalog resumes, or if you have even several catalog resumes available for a certain artist, then it's very difficult, you know, to create a pool like of images which are really original beyond doubt. So this is a problem that we encounter for some artists. Another difficulty is the old masters. So as you probably know, you know, many of the old masters, they had like serious factories around them, basically. So big workshops for these really monumental, pieces they have produced. So they have very often created just a central object, say, and the apprentices did the rest. So this is really difficult because for the AI, it's very important to just use like training data who is like by the hand of that artist. So we have a sort of a hard time, you know, to sort out and to create like a high quality data set. And also the restorations are actually a problem. So like if there are massive restorations on artworks which are not documented, then it's again very difficult to use those, or we shouldn't use those for training because it's by the hand of someone else. And this is disturbing the training. So it's not all perfect. So if you want to continue, Irina. Okay. So that was it basically. I hope you will have some more questions on this.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Before we move on, there were a few questions that came in, and I have a couple of questions for you as well. So the article that The Guardian ran earlier just I think on Sunday, mentioned that your program ran a test on this work. Can you tell us whether it was the museum that asked you to do the work, or how did the experiment came about?
Well, actually, it was our own initiative, really. I mean, as you know, Samson and Delilah is a very, well-known, controversial artwork. I mean, it's just like going on for decades, as you know. And so we just, like periodically, we are testing some well-known artworks just to see what comes out of our AI. And in this particular case, this raised the interest of this journalist. So that's why. So that's how it got published, but we did not receive an explicit request from the museum. It was just us, deciding to do it.
Did you receive any comments from the museum?
Well, I mean, the comment from the National Gallery was also published in the Guardian, I believe. So basically, they say they are not making any comment, but they are, willing to get familiar with our our research. So as I was saying, we are currently preparing, you know, a scientific article which will explain like the details of our technology, and we will of course forward this to them as soon as being published, and we have to see if they wish to continue the discussion.
Great. One more question, and then I will hand the floor to Françoise. You mentioned that you use a lot of images for one artist to train the computer to then make its determination. How do you know that all of the images you're using are authentic in the first place?
Yeah, so I mean, for this, we only rely on catalog resonance. So basically we have, I mean, obviously you can never know for sure if everything that's in the catalog resonates really, really real art. But this is, I believe, the most reliable source that one could use, you know, from everything that's out there. So that's what we do. So basically we have an art expert, you know, we have someone in the team who's checking the catalog resonance. And maybe just let me add a comment on the Rubens analysis, because as you know, there are like maybe I think 500 I don't know, known paintings by Rubens, but we use just around 150. And the reason for that is really the contribution of the workshop, because it seems like many of the you know, paintings by Rubens have been largely influenced by his apprentices. So that's why we only took the paintings where we are really sure, you know, that they are like 100% by him.
All right. Thank you. Françoise, do you want to ask your question?
I wanted to further comment. You know, this technology is very welcome because it is technology, so there is no emotion. You know, either the algorithm recognizes something as genuine or it doesn't. However, of course, there are limits. First, you have to have an artist who is in the database, for sure, because otherwise the AI doesn't know this artist. Then you need works with paint, because for the moment, this has been devised to address paintings and brush strokes and, you know, the colors and the difference. For I'm thinking, you know, more modern of David Hockney, who paints, quote unquote, on his iPad. You couldn't use paint as a reference. What you could do is record each time he has touched the iPad and get the whole record of all these touches as being the original. So there are newer ways that will come as you look at artists who do digital or do not use paint. And I'm sure we're going to hear, what do you do with a Pollock? What do you do with Frankenthal? What do you do? There is paint, but there is not much of a brush stroke. So how does the AI learn when you don't have brush strokes? You have one missing element.
Thank you.
So, I mean, as you are saying, yes, indeed, there are. Let me just add maybe one short comment to Françoise. So our AI can actually also do drawing. So it has to be two-dimensional, made by the hand of someone. So just that to mention that we are not limited only to paintings, but otherwise, I mean, everything else that you said is absolutely correct.
One of the questions, I suppose, that are jumping to other minds as well, what do you do if there's no catalog resonance for a particular artist? Do you not accept a work for that purpose?
So in that case, I mean, we really do it on a client basis or on a request basis. I mean, we look into books, for example. If there are like enough books, say, which are like really getting close to a catalog raisonné, then we might use those. We are also speaking very often with experts, actually. So in some cases, we really went through books like with experts page by page, and they have like indicated to us which, you know, images should be taken for training and which are questionable, we should leave them out. So we are trying to find alternatives, reliable alternatives, of course. But if those don't work, then we would not do that artist. But, you know, fact of the matter is, I mean, the really important artists, you know, all the impressionists and so on, I mean, there are very little cases, I believe, where there is not a catalog raisonné for a relevant artist. Well, it's really worth, you know, running an authentication or some artwork.
There's a question of whether you ever get a result from the analysis that is undetermined. So I suppose 50%. Is there a narrow margin?
Well, actually, it never happened. So really, so I mean, what we've seen from testing is that, you know, if you use less data and maybe not as good quality, then indeed the probabilities, they go around, you know, 50 to 60%. But if you use like a really high quality data set with good, you know, photographs in high resolution, then you always get like high probabilities. What happens also sometimes, you know, like when we analyze some painting, we split them into smaller patches, as we call them, and then maybe we would have like, say, I don't know, 80% of the patches, they would come with a certain probability, and maybe 1-2 patches, they will come like with a probability that's a bit undetermined. But then again, those patches, they would have like maybe only black or something. So this could be like easily discarded. But otherwise, I mean, the probabilities, they are usually very high and very, you know, undoubted.
Another question for you, and then we will switch and talk about the liabilities and warranties and other considerations. Do you look to partner, or have you been working with, for example, other technology innovators, for example, those who do 3-dimensional photographs? And do you work with catalog raisonné societies to maybe help them or certain authors to create catalog raisonné? So there is a symbiotic relationship.
Yes, so indeed we are working with a foundation, and there will be a catalog raisonné coming up maybe next year or the following year, but hopefully next year. And that will be the first catalog raisonné that includes AI, you know, so our expertise as an additional, you know, expertise together with, you know, provenance and forensics and so forth. And so this will be like a big milestone, you know, but we have to be a little patient because, as you know, it takes a while until a new catalog raisonné comes up. But yes, so we are working with a committee, and this will be included certainly. As for partnering up, so I know that there are companies that do high resolution 3-dimensional, you know, photograph scannings. We don't work with them actually because, you know, in order to train the AI, I mean, we do need good photographs, but they don't have to be like in extraordinary quality. So it's enough to take a photo with a normal camera, or nowadays even with the iPhone, you know. So that's why it's not something that we necessarily need, you know, for our work. Maybe also to add at this point that we don't want to be replacing, you know, the art experts or the forensics or the X-ray analysis and provenance and so forth. So really what we want with our AI is to offer at this point in time, you know, an additional tool, an additional system to increase the certainty, you know, and keeping in mind that what we offer in addition to others is an objective, you know, a technical expertise.
Thank you. All right, so I will turn the floor to Françoise Birnholz, who has a lot of very valuable experiences, not only as an attorney with international business background, but also a business advisor or an angel investor. I was actually hoping that maybe Manelli, if you can pull up, we have a poll that we would love to see you guys fill out, if there are any other angels out there, but Françoise is a collector. And I hope she will tell you a little bit more about her collecting choices, whether she collects Rubens, for example, old masters or not, and why. And she's an artist, so there is a reason why there is, for example, an avatar that she used for her photograph. But for the Françoise slides, I took the liberty of sharing again the warranties that Christie's put together. And Françoise the floor is yours. I'm just reminding everybody to put your questions in as we work through the materials.
First, I wanted to comment, and it was one of the questions in the teaser to this talk, that AI and this specific program does not replace human expertise. It's based on, because it uses the catalogue raisonnés, it uses all kinds of things, and it's an excellent first triage. Then you still need to check if the paints that were used existed at the time when it's allegedly made. You still have the x-rays to see if there is something underneath. You still need to analyze the canvas. You have all kinds of things where you still need humans, but at least you can do a first triage and get rid of a lot of non-original works of art that would have otherwise taken a lot of time and money to assert. So now I want to talk about my collecting. So I'm into contemporary art for several reasons. I like new discovery, I like new things, plus I couldn't really afford a real old master, maybe a fake one. If you have a few fake ones, you know, around, I might want to have one of those. And with contemporary art, it's a bit easier because most of the time I buy directly from the artist. I go to their studios or I go to art schools and I look at what students are doing. So I know it is from them. So I don't have a problem with authentication. I may have problems, and this is a totally different or another conversation about provenance. If I buy from somebody, you want to know that you're not only buying something, the real thing, but also that it has not been stolen. And if you want to insure it, you know, you want to have something where you can have real ownership. Yeah.
So the ownership of digital art, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm the owner of an NFT, for example. You want my own story. So you're showing here a work of art which is on my terrace, and it was made by a female sculptor from Iceland. And it's called Thinking Outside of the Swiss Cross. You know, the statue is thinking and it's sitting on a bench in the shape of a Swiss cross. The idea was that the Swiss don't really think out of the box. So that when we commissioned it, that's what she came out with. And I wanted to have a record of my ownership of this work of art. So I used a company called artory.com, and what they have is a blockchain where they record, like a land registry, if you want, everything about the work of art. So I gave them photos of the work of art. I gave them photos of exhibition by the artist. I gave them a certificate from the artist saying that she sold it to me when I went to see her in Reykjavik in her atelier. I put the bill of sale when the thing was shipped from Iceland to Switzerland, and all kinds of other documents. This was reviewed by the Winston Art Group, which is a partner of Artory. And they saw that the documents were genuine, that you know, there was a real work of art and a real artist. And they worked with Artory that issued a digital registration on the blockchain with all these mysterious numbers. And this, I now have an immutable certificate containing all the information about this work of art and of course its dimension, what it's made of, etc., proving that I bought it from this person. And that's what a blockchain registration can do. It's another type of technology but it's different. This is simply a registry, but a registry that is immutable and very secure.
A quick question. So Carolina, you issue your certificates also using blockchain, is that right?
No, not exactly. So we do
How do you encrypt
our certificates, but we don't put it on the blockchain yet.
What I would want to say is that if I got a certificate from our friend here, I could then register it as part of the documents that could go on the Artory blockchain. It would be one more element to show not only the ownership and the provenance, but that I have a real work of art by such an artist. So I would register that certificate in the blockchain.
Sure. Exactly. Yes.
But my question is, Carina, why do you encrypt your certificates?
Well, because, you know, some people choose to put them on the cloud, say like on some drive, on some external drive, or just send them around. So, you know, nowadays it's very easy to edit a PDF. You know, there are some programs where you can simply open, you know, the file and change the numbers if you want. And so because of that, you know, we have decided to put an encryption on it so that people can safely, you know, circulate them if they wish, and without being afraid, you know, that they could be modified. So that's the reason. Unfortunately, we have been approached actually by a professional forger, a professional criminal really, who was like in the attention of the German police. And that's when we started actually to put an encryption on the certificates, because it was not clear what he was going to do with it. So yeah, that's a little anecdote how we came up with an encryption. So, but just to make sure that they can be circulated and nobody can change anything.
Wow, that's a very interesting thought. And actually, I wonder if catalog resonance should also be somehow protected, or the archives should be somehow protected from forgers who are able to insert photographs and make clippings and other fakes. There's a question about your analysis, whether you do any work with the background, with the recta of a work. Does that, is that included in your analysis?
So, I mean, the analysis is based really on optical information. So that means that the, I don't know, the canvas information, you know, the pigments, the, I don't know, so all of the X-ray and so forth, none of this goes into the analysis. So it's really like based only on the information coming out of the RGB codes or of the photographs.
Okay. What do you say, or what do you think collectors should keep in mind when asking for certificates of authenticity, or when looking for experts to give opinions?
So, I mean, obviously we are working with many collectors. So one problem that they are facing very often, you know, is that experts disagree. So they are going to one expert, you know, and they're getting a yes, and then they are going to a different expert, and then they're getting a no. And then what? So we have people, you know, telling us that they've been spending decades basically trying to sort out the authenticity of their art, and it seemed to have been an impossible task. And they came to us, you know, and whatever they got, you know, it was a yes or it was a no. Quite often it was a no, unfortunately, but then they would be really happy to find out the truth. So what I would tell to them, you know, like, spare yourself the trouble and come to art recognition, you know, so that you can get like a really quick, you know, objective cold authentication, and put an end to it, you know. leaving aside the economic reasons, which are like it costs less, it's less trouble. I mean, you don't have to send the original artwork, you don't have to take samples out of it. You can be anywhere in the world, you know, the process is the same for everyone. So that's what I would tell to them.
So Françoise, remember when we were doing preparation for this call, you mentioned that this is a useful triage tool. But my question is, and we have very litigious community in general. We have cases where people bought forgeries and then were upset. And then we also have cases such as the, I think, Marshik versus Christie's case, it's in your handout, where an owner of a work of art did not know what they had. And they got a very quick opinion from an expert, and the work was sold for relatively little. And then it turned out to be a sleeper, supposedly, like the Salvador Mundi. The idea was it was a sleeper, it was misattributed, and then it was attributed correctly, and then it set a record of $450 million at auction. And now we have a debate again whether it's an authentic piece or not. One of the questions was whether Art Recognition did any analysis on the Salvador Mundi. But what are the liabilities and warranties that theoretically, Françoise, you would want both collectors and auction houses and experts have in mind when using new technologies or giving opinions?
You know, I think the legal theories on which liability is based, that is not changed. It's not because you have a new technology that the law has changed. It's always the same. Was it good faith? Was there reliance and all these good things? The technology helps, supports. And we've seen that Carina has been well advised that her certification expressly say that they don't give any warranty, they don't give any guarantee. It's an analysis by a system and it helps, but the rest has not changed. So as a buyer of a work of art, you want to accumulate as many indicia as you can, showing that you're buying the real thing. Of course, you need to have across the table somebody acting in good faith, because again, the legal theories, you don't want them to be grossly negligent, you don't want willful misconduct. It doesn't change anything. It's one more thing that helps out identify a work of art. And there you will have all kinds of new technologies we don't even know about right now, but the legal theory is the same.
Understood. One of the questions that just came in is the problematic situation where the owner might have all the right images, things, etc., but not actually have an authentic work of art. It's more of a comment, but Carina, what do you think would happen? For example, if you have an owner coming to you and saying, I have these elements, and you give them the analysis that the computer, which is objective and really not, there can't be a willful negligence with the computer. Thing is, maybe it depends on how much information you feed into the computer. How do you do the hand-holding or the delivery of the message to your clients?
You mean how we deliver like the negative response, or if we were to well, I mean, we actually don't do it through humans, you know. So like the owner of the art gets a link, you know, through an automatic email system, basically, and he will download his report from there, and that's it. So it's objectiveness and coldness until the end. I mean, it's difficult to break the bad news. Some clients are writing us explicitly, you know, and we are trying like to suit them if we can, but many clients are actually happy about knowing the truth, because as I said, you know, many of them, they have so many of the art owners, they have a long history, you know, of asking around, you know, and going to different labs and experts and getting like contradictory answers. So they are just happy, you know, to find out the truth, like whatever that is. So this is a nice feedback, you know, that we're getting, that we can just help them, you know, to put that story to sleep.
And also, as you mentioned before, with the old masters, you can have an atelier of Raphael. And it's all the you know, associates that have helped out, and you the master would typically just do the main image in the middle of the painting and not the rest. So is it a genuine one? Is it not? It depends.
That is a very good question, Françoise. And indeed, I mean, we have encountered this situation several times. And what we do in that case, we really open up, you know, we are like giving them the results as they are. So basically, you know, we are carrying out like detailed analysis on small patches, and we simply return the table, you know, with the probabilities. And we tell them, look, part of it is original, part of it is not. And that's it. We don't make a statement, you know, like this is real art or this is not real art. So we just give a very, you know, factual information to them, and then they can use them as they see fit.
There's a question of cost vis-a-vis one of the technologies. The reason I suppose I'm playing coy a little bit. I don't want to speak about blockchain technology here, because we have another conversation in the works coming up where we'll talk about artery actually and the use of blockchain technology. Here I'd like to focus more on the benefits that artificial intelligence is able to give us. But in terms of costs, for example, running scientific analysis and taking pigments and doing what needs to be done with the physical object is expensive. What about the cost of doing the analysis with art recognition for an artist that is more studied or an artist that is less known?
Yes, so I mean the costs vary actually. So I mean I can tell to you, you know, that a full report costs between 1,000 and 10,000 francs. So the average being at 3,000-4,000. So it's quite expensive. The reason behind this is that the trainings, you know, so like getting the data, going through the catalog raisonnés, you know, having the people doing the selection, then running the trainings on the cloud, you know, with all the electricity bills and so on. So all the cloud costs, you know, all this process is quite expensive. It's done just once, you know, but still is very expensive. So our approach so far is to distribute the costs, you know, to the client, so that, because it's unfair, of course, to pass it on to what the first client. These are the reports, but we also run something that we call a quick check. So, and that is cheaper. That is like between 500 and 1,000 francs. So without writing a full, you know, report where we explain all the details of the analysis, but we just really return a response like yes, no, and with a probability. So the price varies.
Understood. Do we have any other questions about this particular technology that's available, or any concerns or questions? I think the takeaway should be one element or one type of technology is not sufficient. Just running analysis might give you a percentage, right? But there are certainly works of art that may be understudied or were not done by the artist on a good day, and they are still by that artist. It's just maybe a little bit out of the norm. So I don't expect that the sleepers will go away entirely, but probably there will be fewer confusions and fewer discoveries down the line. Any questions from our audience? Or Françoise, do you have any more comments on this technology and other technologies that you have seen in the Crypt Valley or the other art tech initiatives?
that would be many other calls if we start talking about NFTs, about CryptoPunk and all these newer things. No, I'm very glad to seeing AI and this technology, because indeed a lot of pain and suffering goes away by eliminating all kinds of things that people found in their attic and didn't know whether it was or wasn't.
We have identified a few other topics that we would like to explore. So we'll talk about NFTs, and one of the guest speakers is actually on the call. Hopefully she's taking notes, and we would love to hear from you what kind of subjects in this realm. As I said, I like the film Some Like It Hot, so I like black and white and tangible, and I don't own an NFT yet, but there are many interesting initiatives. I'm sure there are certain topics that we haven't even thought about. I don't know if 3D printing is something that you would like to hear about, or if you would like to hear more about joint projects. There's probably no limit, but maybe there's something that you would like us to note and know about. So the survey that Minelli will send out, it's a new thing that we're trying. We will first collect your information. It's going to be anonymous, but then you will receive the recording and the handouts. We really want to encourage participation and feedback, and even if it's negative, we will take it, and we're happy to improve our offerings. I see there are a few questions, so I'm going to read through them. Carina, do you have any questions for the lawyers or the artists or historians in the room? Maybe we can add something to the program.
Well, I mean, as Françoise said, I mean, this would be a very long discussion, and I think the 5 minutes would not be enough. But I mean, as we discussed in the preparation of the call, I mean, one open question or one issue that we are discussing at Art Recognition and also with other legal experts is the possibility to embed this evidence into trials, you know, into like court cases. But as I mean, this is a totally different topic, something that we could consider maybe for another discussion. But otherwise, I really enjoyed speaking to you today.
There is a court that has been created, I think inspired by the fakes and forgeries cases, the Court of Arbitration for Art. And I know they were looking for different experts to have a pool of both judges and mediators. And I don't know if they have scientists as part of their pool of experts, but theoretically this could be one of the elements that they could include in their offering for the triage purposes.
So we could discuss this maybe bilaterally later on.
Sure. There's a question about study of Pollock paintings. I'm not sure if you can tell us about certain works of art that you did analysis, but can you tell us if there are certain artists that come up more often, if they're from, let's say, the 50s, 60s, or mostly old masters? Is there some kind of a statistic that you can share with us?
Yeah, so most of the artists that we get to analyze are actually impressionists, like the large majority, almost 3/4 actually of what we've got. And then the rest is old masters and expressionists, I would say, and then the others a little bit from here and there. Pollock we never did, but as I said, I mean, what's really important, you know, is to have like a genuine brush stroke. So for the very modern art, that doesn't really work. But as I said, mostly impressionists. Renoir, Monet, Manet.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other final thoughts? We will end today promptly at 1 o'clock. And I hope there are other technologies that you are either thinking about or maybe inspired to create. We would love to know about initiatives that you are meeting or meeting in the work that you're doing in this realm of art and law space. If there are no last questions, I think caveat emptor still stands. As Françoise said, the law hasn't changed, even though there's been a lot of development thanks to the computers and inventors and scientists. So read the fine print, terms of service and warranties. And the handout that our team put together for this webinar has a lot of really wonderful materials, lots of interesting cases as a reminder. So take a look. Thank you again, Françoise. Thank you. Enjoy London. Go say hi to Ruben if it so happens. Carina, many thanks for sharing your research and your work. I know that my mind is growing every time we have these webinars. So thank you very, very much. And I look forward to seeing many of you later in the fall, because we are learning and sharing not weekly, but quite frequently. Thank you.